Warning. This podcast is solely based on smut books. The definition of smut is a story that includes one or more sexually explicit scenes. This is a warning for all listeners to proceed with caution. There will be explicit content, sex talk, and triggering subjects. We will provide a trigger warning before each episode. This podcast is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, Smut Sluts. We're your hosts. I'm Tisha.
And I'm Corey, and welcome back to our podcast.
Okay, so I want to start off by saying fuck you for making me read this book.
Yeah, I feel like this one was a hard one.
Yeah, sorry. Something about me is I've gotten really good over the years learning how to suppress my emotions. I will not watch TV shows that make me cry. I will not watch movies that make me cry. I will not read books that make me cry. I'll not put myself in any situation that will make me cry. And then this bitch makes me read this book, and I bawled like a baby.
You know what? I think that's like my downfall is I love the shit that makes me cry.
Well, you're a bitch.
Colleen Hoover is like the updated Nicholas Sparks. Not saying he's outdated, but you know what I mean? She's more like that type of style of book. And coming from Verity to this is completely a 180 of how she writes.
Yeah, and this is only the second book by Colleen Hoover. The only one I ever referenced was Verity, so it's way different than this.
Does it make you want to read more?
No.
Because
I don't like crying.
No, she's going to be done after this, guys.
No, because I'm going to read the next one.
Oh, yeah.
So,
2. That's it. You're going to read 2 Colleen Hoover books and you're done.
Oh, 3. Verity, it starts with us and it ends with us. So today we're covering It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover.
Oh. I don't think my heart is ready for this, nor is my... You got a tissue ready.
Oh, I brought the tissues out because I'm gonna cry.
This one's gonna be a hard one for me to talk about, and I'll obviously get into it as we tell what the story's going on.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So with this book, we're going to be changing how we talk about it. We feel like we've gone into too much detail, and we just want to do a summary and fucking talk about the book, because that's what's funny to us is when we can banter about the books and talk shit. So it's a contemporary romance. And the trigger warnings for this book. There is none labeled within the book, but there's domestic violence, suicide, and it talks about a kid getting shot with a gun. Mm-hmm. So, and there is obviously death within that. So just be forewarned.
And it's not just like a short touch on domestic violence. Like the whole book is surrounded by domestic violence.
This book is written based off of Colleen Hoover's experience with her parents. And obviously we're going to get way detailed with this in our discussion with it, but it's to show you how it can be romanticized in a way, which is hard. And it also shows people like the real reason why people never leave the relationships. So after we do the synopsis, we'll get into all of it.
Okay, one thing we want to touch on is the main characters. We kind of want to start describing them in the beginning of the episode so you guys aren't like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Unless you've read the book.
So the main characters in this book is going to be Lily, Ryle, and Atlas.
And then the side characters, I can't think of what there's another word for it.
I told you, it's medium characters.
Yeah. They're medium fire in this bitch. There's Elisa. Is that how you say it? Alyssa. That's how the freaking audiobook was saying it. Was Elisa.
Really?
Yeah.
I read Alyssa the whole time.
I did too. And then I listened to that and I was like, huh?
But Colleen Hoover had to have had a voice in the audiobook, don't you think?
Oh. I have no fucking clue.
Alyssa, Lisa. I'm going to say Alyssa.
Okay, I'm going to go with
that's how I read it.
I read it the same way until the audiobook, and I've been listening to it this week, and I'm just like, huh. It's funny when you go through the book and you're like, that's how I would say it, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like Carlizzle.
Yeah, I don't remember. No.
Anyways, there's Alyssa, Marshall, and then Lily's mom. I don't think they've ever really named her names.
I don't know her name.
And there's a few other ones, but those are like the main ones in this.
Okay, so we got Lily, Ryle, Atlas, Alyssa, Marshall, Lily's mom.
Okay. I love that we just have all the names but Lily's mom.
Lily's mom. It's Mrs. Lily.
Mrs. Lily Bloom.
Oh, Bloom, that is her name.
Lily.
Bud. Nope. That would
Blossom.
be hilarious. I hope her birthday's 420.
She's got a butt up in that shit. She's gonna be smoking all day. Oh, fuck.
Lily Blossom Bloom. What the fuck?
You would get tormented as a child.
Tormented?
And then the fact that she loves flowers, right? And gardening and doing that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna jump into the synopsis. Why does it say dedication where?
That's how I did it to keep it going, but then I just didn't do the dedication of the book. I liked how she wrote the dedication because it was to her mom for allowing her to write this story and to, I believe, to the victims of domestic violence, but I don't remember what.
We didn't get the number.
What number? Oh, you can pull it up.
Okay.
All right. Well, she does that. I'm going to start doing this. We're shit shows today. No, spicy disasters. We're classy in this bitch. So we're going to start off with the synopsis. So this book follows Lily's story. It starts off telling how she meets Ryle. They meet on top of the apartment building where he lives and his sister Alyssa and her husband Marshall. We find that out later into the book, but they meet on the rooftop. Lily had just given her father's eulogy, and he died, I believe, of pancreatic cancer or some sort of cancer. I can't remember. And she's sitting there thinking about suicide and like how people just do it and what are their thoughts with it, that sort of thing. They start bantering, and Ryle tells her that he is a one-night stand kind of guy. I think he tells her at this point that he's a neurosurgeon, and his arms are massive.
Yes, she's obsessed with his arms. And
him in scrubs. Mm-hmm. That is the biggest thing with Lily, is to know that. And I'm sorry, but I'd stare.
Oh, yeah.
Hardcore. But I don't like Ryle, so we're going to go into that. So they kind of have this one interaction, and then they don't see each other for a while. Lily wants to open her own flower shop, which she ends up doing. And she meets Alyssa, this girl who is absolutely hilarious. She comes in and wants to be an employee. They become best friends through it all, I would say. They are the dynamic duo that they need for this. As she's going through this, Lily had grabbed books from her parents' house where she found her journals from being a kid. And this is where we kind of get into her backstory of like Atlas and how her dynamic was growing up.
Yeah.
We learn at this point that Lily's father was abusive. I don't remember him being was he an alcoholic?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember. Obviously, I should remember because of this book.
You know what? I'm thinking of the acknowledgments now, because I know her dad was an alcoholic. I don't know if Lily's dad was. I think he did drink, because most of the fights would come home when he would stay out late, like to stop at the bar on his way home. So we're going to say he's like a mild medium alcoholic. He's
more of your nighttime binge drinking alcoholic rather than your like full-blown functioning alcoholic, because there's different types of it. So they go through it, and we start getting the details of Atlas is homeless. We find out that his mom had him, everything. His dad left.
Yeah, he didn't know his dad growing up.
Okay. This is hard without notes.
So then his stepdad came into his mom's life, and they always butted heads. And when he turned 18, they got in a really bad fight, and his stepdad kicked him out. Yeah. And so he went to live with a friend, and then the friend's dad got transferred to
Tokyo?
Colorado.
Oh. Completely. It's in the notes. We're shit shows. This is bad.
He got transferred to some other state or country, who knows. And so Atlas didn't have a place to stay, so he went back home to see if he could stay with them, and they were like, no, you're not welcome here. So then he found an abandoned house, which happened to be the house that was right behind Lily's house.
Right.
And so one day she notices the lights on, and she's like, what the fuck is going on over there? Nobody's lived there for like 2 years. And so then in the morning she sees him come out and go to the bus stop, and he's stinky, he looks dirty, he's grungy, but she feels bad for him because she's like, what the fuck is happening?
Right. And I think too, like, it was really sad reading his parts, because people are so quick to judge on the appearance of somebody, and like the girl Katie on the bus was making comments blatantly where he could hear it, and it's just like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, she was a cunt.
And there's that word. Oh boy.
C-U-N-T. Do you remember when I had to explain to you what See You Next Tuesday was?
Yeah. I've never heard it.
I mean, Day to Remember song.
I don't know. I guess I didn't pay attention. I think that's one thing Bria knew and I didn't know, to be honest. What? Because, right? She knew something I didn't. She had to help me.
Something you don't know. That's probably what you did, huh?
Yep.
Okay, so Lily starts noticing that he's going there by himself. There's obviously no power in the house, and so she feels bad, and she kind of starts connecting with him. She brings him food, and they start talking. They form kind of a friendship. She lets him use his shower when her parents aren't home because she knows that if they're home, she's going to get in a lot of trouble. They start bonding over the Ellen DeGeneres show, and she is writing these journals. Did you already say that? The Ellen journals?
No, you can.
So she starts writing journals about like her parents' situation, about Atlas, and she calls them the Ellen journals. So instead of like Dear Diary, she says Dear Ellen.
Yeah,
because she was obsessed with it. I do too.
I love that she says Dear Ellen. I think that's a good form of like therapy for a lot of people, is to go on that. And like that, it's just so funny. I'm like, Ellen DeGeneres, out of all people, that's who you choose. But
she's a good person though. Like, but it was just, she just really, these journals helped her mentally through the shitty home life that she had. Right. And so basically she's reading these journals, and it states all of this stuff that's happening with Atlas and how they really form a really good friendship, and feelings start getting involved. And she loves him.
They're each other's first love.
2 or 3 years older than her. She was 15 and he was 18.
Yeah, I think there's 3 years in between them, because he asked before anything went further when she turned 16, I think, to help himself feel a little bit better too.
And I'm assuming Maine is one of those states that have like the 16-year-old age limit, I would hope. Colleen?
I don't know. I have no idea about that because I'm way past that age, so it doesn't affect me now. I'm like, oh, cool, you want to go? You're 35? Let's go. Not really. I'm just teasing. Not happening.
All the 35-year-olds are going to be in your DMs now.
No, I'll make my shit private as fuck. Just kidding. So we go into it, and this is where we start to learn her parents' side of things and like what happens. And there were, the screaming matches, dad slapping mom. One time Atlas was there, and her mom was parked in the garage, and it was snowing. And her mom was trying to come inside with the groceries. Yeah. And her dad had pulled up and was honking the horn, and I was so fucking pissed. I'm like, dude, just sit in your car for 2 seconds. Like, be a man and, like, be respectful. She's providing for the house.
Be a man and let her park in the fucking garage.
Right.
But he wouldn't let her. But then he got mad and beat the shit out of her, and Lily tried to stop him, and he flung her off of him, and she ended up hitting her head.
Can I tell you, this book was really hard. Like, if you've never dealt with domestic violence, it's not going to be as hard, but dealing with it in your household and then reading this is very triggering. The first time I read this was like, you remember how bad I was after I read it. I was like distraught. Yeah. So, anywho, we'll get into that.
So Atlas kind of starts picking up on like what is going on in the house. And one thing Lily always does, she also growing up was very pissed off at her mom that she just didn't get her out of that situation.
There's a lot of resentment there, for sure.
She thought that she was weak and that she just didn't like care about her essentially. But every time her dad would go off beating her mom, if Lily walked into the room, he would stop. Right. He would walk away. So she was kind of like her mom's saving grace in that aspect, because she would, anytime she was there, he would leave her alone. And one night, Atlas and Lily are in her room, and they're just talking. It's late at night. It's a Friday. Her parents were out at like a charity event, and they heard them come home, and before they even walked in the door, they could hear them screaming at each other. So Lily's like, I gotta go downstairs. And he's like, no, you are not going downstairs. And she's like, I have to go downstairs. And he's like, Lily, no. And she's like, he will stop if I go downstairs. And so Atlas lets her go, and as she walks down the stairs, she has never seen her father beat her mother like this. Choking her, punching her, trying to rape her. Oh, we didn't do a rape as a
there's a trigger warning, guys. Rape. It doesn't I don't want to downplay. I'm like, not to downplay it, because
but it does touch on it.
It's obviously part of the assault that's happening. So
he didn't hear Lily or see Lily, and she is pissed. Like pissed beyond belief. So she goes into the kitchen to grab a knife, and as she's charging towards her dad, Atlas scoops her up, and her mom hears them. And so she looks over, sees her and Atlas. Her dad didn't hear anything, luckily.
Thank God.
Yeah. So
could you imagine if he would have seen Atlas?
No. Oh my God. So they rush up to her room, and he puts her down, and she is fighting him tooth and nail to get out there and save her mom, but he won't let her go. He's like, nope. And all of a sudden the door starts opening, and her mom walks in. And she sees Atlas Atlas and acknowledges him, but she doesn't get mad.
Right.
She's like, he stopped as soon as he heard your door shut because he knew that you were awake.
Right.
And she starts breaking down crying, and Lily's just holding her while she's crying, and she looks over and Atlas is gone because he wanted to call the cops, but she was like, no, he's just going to go to bed. It'll make it worse. It'll ruin his career. And so Atlas just leaves and lets them have their moment.
Yeah. So then kind of after that, it tells how Atlas does leave for Boston, and then he ends up in the Marines, and so he's out of the picture at this point. So Lily and Ryle end up back in each other's life after their meeting on the rooftop. Come to find out, Ryle is brother and sister with Alyssa. We're gonna just go with that.
Alyssa.
So they kind of form this close-knit bond, and Ryle fights tooth and nail to get her to sleep with him. And Lily's like, no, because she wants marriage and kids, where he just wants the one-night stand. Being a neurosurgeon, he feels like his career's got to be number one, you know?
And he feels like if he fucks her once, it'll be out of his system,
right?
Basically.
He's an egotistical son of a bitch is what he is. I fucking can't. So they start, and he kind of caves because he can't stop thinking about her. He's infatuated with her, and so they fuck for the first time. And by the way, Colleen Hoover is not spicy.
No.
You see it on Book Talk. It is not spicy. It is like, he put his penis in me and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
not spicy. If you want spicy, hit us up.
Right.
But this is not a spicy book.
No. So Ryle becomes the love of her life. You know what I mean? He is charming. He's charismatic. He's caring. He's
driven.
Yeah. And
smart.
And he's the perfect package. Any woman who met this man would be in love with him. Like, for reals.
Like, the beginning of this book to like 50% of this book, you literally fall in love with Ryle. Like, you love him. I kept texting her, what the fuck? Like, I love Ryle.
Yeah.
I thought he was supposed to be a bad guy. I am in love with him.
Right. So then things start to turn. He sees this magnet on their fridge.
That's not the first time.
What's the first time?
It's when the
Why
oven.
am I drawing? That is that's not the magnet. That's this. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So she's cooking him a casserole. He gets home and he like teases her a little bit, and she's like, oh, fuck you. And he's like, I have to shower. And she's like, are you kidding me?
Yes. And his big surgery's on Monday.
Yep. So he has a big surgery to basically, it's like the conjoined twins. He's going to split them apart.
Whatever this medical term is for that.
Really like morbid. And so she's like, well, I have dinner in the oven. Like, you go shower. And when he gets out of the shower, she jumps in the shower. They get out. Oh, we forgot to mention the restaurant. When she sees Atlas for the first time.
We are shit shows.
It's fine. We're doing it in a new format, and I promise we're going to get better. So
I feel like we're back at episode 1 right now. Can we like...
We're just going to...
I take it back.
Okay, so before that happens, she's like, I have to go to dinner with my mom. And he's like, well, can I come? And she's like, you want to meet my mom? And he's like, yeah, I want to meet your mom. So they go to this new restaurant called Bibs. And they're sitting down, they're talking. She's introducing her mom, and she's just like, what the fuck? Like, you have a boyfriend that's a neurosurgeon, huh? And
she's in love with him too.
Yeah, she is immediately infatuated with him. And the waiter comes up and asks what they want to drink. And Lily's like, I want a water.
Hello, Atlas.
It's Atlas.
You and him.
8 years later.
So he's there, and they kind of both are stunned.
They're just like, you know, on Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, fuck.
So he takes their drink orders, and Lily is just like, what the fuck just happened?
Panic attack.
Yeah. And then when the waiter comes back, it's a different waiter.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I have to pee. She gets up, goes to the bathroom, because she's just like, what the fuck is happening? And she's scanning the restaurant, looking everywhere, like, was that him? Am I just seeing things? So she goes into the bathroom, and as she's going into the bathroom, he comes in. This was after the fight scene.
They walk out, and he's in the hallway, and they kind of have a catch-up moment, and he lies to her and said that he has a girlfriend, Cassie. And she says that he's with Ryle. She's with Ryle. And that's kind of the end of it. Like, they just say it was good to see each other. It's hard because they're still in love with each other, but obviously they're both in respective other relationships. And so they can't pursue anything.
Yeah, but it's like, it's really good to see you. We should catch up sometime.
Right.
I own this flower shop.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. I own this. Wait,
he doesn't say it yet.
I own a dog and a pair of shoes.
And a pair of shoes. Well, let's just go with that. Okay, and then we'll cue it back to their first fight. So Ryle has this big surgery coming up, and they had been foreplaying in the kitchen pretty much. They're ready to go. And then they forget about the casserole. So Ryle goes to open the oven and sticks his hand in without a hot pad and grabs this casserole. Drops it all over the kitchen, glass breaking. And Lily's had glasses of wine at this point, so it's like
3 of them.
Yeah. So you're giddy if you're a lightweight like that, which I'm a lightweight, so that would be me. And she starts laughing, but the hand that he had used was his hand for surgery. And he had just been saying, this is the steadiest hand in Boston. Like, you fucking bastard. I don't like him. Sorry. But so she goes over to the sink as he's rinsing off the burn and is asking like if he's okay, but he
like reacts and like throws his arm back.
Yeah, he gets pissed and like slams her down pretty much. So on the way down, she hits her face on the cupboard
and blacks out.
Yeah, because it happens when these situations happen. Colleen Hoover could describe them. She could go in detail. Like, I felt the cupboard hit my face, but that's not the realistic side of this type of situation. When these situations happen, your adrenaline is rushing so bad that you literally, there are seconds where you can't remember them at all, or you don't feel anything until later, or the shock just sets in, you know? And that's what happened to her, is she felt the shock aspect of this, and the next thing she knew, she was sitting on the ground and Ryle's apologizing to her. He starts instantly love bombing her.
Yeah, and as he's approaching her, she pushes him and he falls back on the broken glass and cuts his hands. Yeah. And she's just like, oh shit.
Yeah,
she's having this surgery. He's gonna attack me again, but he's calm.
Yeah, she has the conflicting emotions of any woman who, battered woman syndrome. If you look at this is exactly what it is. You feel terrified for your life because somebody put their hands on you, but at the same time, you love that person. You don't want that to go away.
But in her head also, she has been telling herself since she was a little girl, if any man that I'm in a relationship with hits me, I'm gone. And so now that it's happened to her, she is fighting with herself in her head.
Right.
She's like, well, he didn't mean to. Oh, it was an accident. It was a reflex. He just happened to swing his arm back. And
yeah,
she is so upset with him. And he immediately starts like taking care of her head, bandaging it for her, bandaging his hands.
It was an accident. It was just that.
Yeah.
It was just that.
And she told him, she was like, you're saying this is an accident, but I'm telling you right now, if this was an accident, that means it's never going to happen again. If it happens again, I am gone. I am out of your life forever. And he's like, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah. And they make up.
Yeah. So they continue on with this.
Yes. But the reason they were fighting is because Alyssa wanted to go to dinner with them and they wanted to go to the restaurant Bips. And Lily was like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. I do not want to go there. And that's when he was like, oh, I'm hungry. And she's like, oh shit, the casserole. So they were planning a dinner. Lily loses. They go to Bips.
Yeah. So then this is when Atlas sees Lily's face. And
Ryle's hand.
Yeah, and Ryle's hand has a bandage on it. So obviously 2 and 2 together, so you're going to realize that these two had a tussle. And Atlas grew up with Lily in that household, essentially. You know, they had a long period of time with each other where they honestly have a trauma bond with this. And so that's where it's hard, and he gets pissed. So Lily went to the bathroom to calm down because she knew instantly on Atlas's face that he knew what happened. So she goes to calm down, and as she's about to leave the bathroom, Atlas goes into the bathroom. And he was like, why are you with him? You need to leave him. She's like, no, I swear that's not what happened. She lies about it because she's embarrassed and she's ashamed that she put herself in that situation. Yeah. And as they're leaving the restroom, wow, I was going to say restaurant. They're not leaving that yet. Ryle's outside. And he's confused, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you guys are in the bathroom together. Like, and he's assuming this. Yeah. Well, they get into a fist fight because Atlas tried to walk away. I will give him that, but he couldn't. He loves Lily, like, truthfully. Yeah. So he even says, like, or Ryle says some low blow comment, like, you were just a pity fuck, and like, I hated that. Lily is just like, oh my god, I never said that. Yeah. So they have a full on fist fight for a minute, and Atlas kicks Ryle out of the restaurant. So they're not even allowed to happen with this anymore. And so this is when they go home.
and everything's fine. And then the next day at the flower shop, Atlas comes by, and he has a present for her, and he wanted to see her flower shop, and she's like, oh, he's here to apologize for basically getting a fist fight with Ryle. He's like, I'm not fucking apologizing for standing up, for defending you.
Yeah, no.
He's like, I came to apologize that I told you that you were just like your mom, because he had said that during the fight. And she's like, oh, okay. She's like, I promise Ryle's not like that. Like, it was a total accident, this and that. He's like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And so he's like, here, I got your present. And she's like, you didn't have to get me a present. He's like, I got it for you 3 years ago.
I love Alex.
I know. And so she thanks him. He writes down his name and phone number on the back of a sticky note and sticks it in her phone case so that if there's ever an emergency and she needs him, that she has it. So he leaves. She opens the present. It's Ellen DeGeneres' book, and it's signed, and it says, Dear Lily, just keep swimming.
I
love Ellen.
Love it. So that's also a little thing between Lily and Atlas, is just keep swimming. Just keep swimming through the bullshit that life has thrown at both of these two teenagers.
You know, domestic violence, homeless, it's just really shitty situation for both of them growing up. So time goes on. Her and Ryle are great. Yeah, nothing. Like, Alyssa had confided in her that she was having troubles getting pregnant. We find out that she is pregnant, and it was just so cute. Ryle's been nothing but amazing to her. Lily and Marshall are just hilarious. I fucking love Marshall.
Me too.
Is so funny, the shit that comes out of his mouth.
He's great. He's like that perfect husband, do as I say, not as I do kind of, Yeah. He's on his wife's team.
He's 100%. Please don't divorce me.
Right. I love them. I just am. I'm a romantic person, so for me, it's like, oh, you're sweet. Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff that happens in these chapters, just the character building and the relationship building, and just you really connect with Lily and Ryle, unfortunately.
Yeah, you do.
Like I said, I loved Ryle. Even after this incident, I told Corey, the first domestic incident, I was like, the way that Colleen had worded it, I could see, I hate to say this, but I could see how it could have been an accident. He was so frazzled, and if she touched him and he wasn't expecting it, you could just on instinct just do that, and that could have made her fall. So in my head, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't want him to be the bad guy. But she had told me about this book, so I knew it was coming. So in the same breath, I'm like, I don't like him.
It's hard because I can understand coming from no domestic violence background where you would be in love with him and you could find that understandable. But I don't, just because I'm so, I don't want to say desensitized from the bullshit, but kind of.
Yeah.
So we'll discuss this in a little bit. But so they keep doing their thing. One night they're talking, and Lily gets in the shower, and he accidentally dropped her phone.
Is this the stair? Yeah.
Yes, this is the stairs. So he accidentally drops her phone, and she gets out, and he is just pissed.
Well, she heard a couple crashes in the shower, and she's like, Ryle, what is going on? And so she gets out like, what the fuck? So she gets out, and the nightstand is overturned. There's some other things that are broken on the ground, and he picks up her phone and said this. And he thinks, at this point, he's thinking that Lily kept Atlas's number for whatever reason, but really she never called him. They get into a yelling match, pretty much. And he's not letting her explain herself.
No, not at all. But in these situations, the abuser will never. But they don't want to hear what you have to say. It's, I'm fucking right and you're a bitch, pretty much. So Ryle leaves the apartment, and Lily followed him to try to stop him. They were in their stairwell, and she went to grab him, but he pushes her. So the next thing Lily knows, she is in their apartment staring at the ceiling with the light in her face, with Ryle assessing her for any injuries. And she's like, you pushed me. And he's like, no, you fell, Lily. And he repeats this multiple times. He is gaslighting her so hard that it is absolutely insane. Like, at this point, this motherfucker's done to me. Like, I did not like this. Like, I just was like, no, I'm done with the story, to be honest.
Yeah. After this is when I really started growing a big dislike for him.
Yeah.
So Lily looks at him and says, get the fuck out of my apartment. Yeah. And he's like, Lily, no. Yeah. And she's like, get the fuck out of my apartment. Yeah. And he is just sad and woe is me and I'm so sorry. And so he leaves. And Lily cries herself to sleep at night. She's just completely distraught. He told me this would never happen again, and it happened again.
Right.
So the next day at the store, she gets to work and Ryle and Alyssa are there.
Yes.
And Alyssa's like, oh my gosh, Ryle, what did you do to her?
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, does she know? But the way she's acting makes me think she does. What did he tell her?
Right.
Because he had to have lied to her. And she's like, if you don't tell her, I'm going to tell her. And she's like, I will watch the shop while you go and talk to her. And at this point, Alyssa is super fucking pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
She's like 36 weeks or something like that. So they get in Lily's car, they go to the apartment, and Lily's on edge. She doesn't want to be alone in the apartment with him. She's scared of him.
I think at this point we also need to say that they are living together.
Yeah, so they had moved in together.
They're in Lily's apartment now.
Yeah, he had basically moved in with her. So they get to the apartment, and he confides in her saying that the first night they met, he was really distraught and upset. And the reason he was upset is because he had lost a little boy, a patient. And how he had lost the little boy is he was accidentally shot. And that really triggered Ryle because when they were kids, he was playing with a gun. He was 6 years old, and it went off, and he shot his little brother.
It's
big
sad.
brother. Was he
Big brother?
Big brother.
I'm pretty sure it's big brother.
And Alyssa, I believe, was 6, and the big brother was 8.
I think he was 8.
Yeah, so, or Alyssa was 7, so it was 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
And the way Ryle had described it is he was trying to make him better by trying to scoop all the contents and put them back in his head. That was just like, oh my God. And
she has no filter talking about the kid shit. Like, look at Verity in this. I'm like, Colleen, we need to talk about your mental state right now, please.
And ever since then, Ryle has had issues with anger, where when he gets really angry or upset, he blacks out.
Yeah.
And it's something that he has been working through his whole life. But he tells Lily that he needs help and he wants her to help him. And she is feeling for him and she's crying and she's like, oh my gosh, you've been through so much.
Yeah.
So she forgives him.
So this is where everything goes perfect. They literally go back.
I can't tell you how many times she says, I don't think my life could get more perfect.
Right.
I don't think my life could get more perfect.
Right. So they end up getting married. They go to Vegas on a whim and get married. They have discussed that they do want kids and all of this stuff. There's some stuff that was obviously left out of the discussion, but they go get married. They come home and they're literally living the dream life. What you dream of being as an adult in the marriage and that, it's perfect. Like there is not one aspect where it wouldn't be.
Yeah. They get in a little tussle here and there. Like he wants to move to Michigan because he got a job offer at the most prestigious hospital that he's ever wanted to work at.
Yeah.
Lily wants to stay in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so they get in a little tussle about that. And they come to an agreement where, well, he walks away. That was one of their...
That was a good thing for him to do.
That was one of their stipulations when they got the second violence situation is she said, okay, when you are feeling angry, instead of blacking out and harming me, you need to walk away. And when you've calmed down, please come back and talk to me.
Right.
But you always need to walk away. So there was a couple times where he did walk away, especially about moving. He really wanted that job. But when he came back, he was like, you know, we're in this together. You have to make sacrifices and I'm willing to stay in Chicago for you.
This is where shit takes the turn though. Is obviously they move into a new apartment in the same building as Alyssa and Marshall.
And he surprised her with it.
Yes. See, like that's the hard thing is they're not all, one side is not bad, but then there is this side where it is a demon.
It's unforgivable.
Yeah.
Like it's not that much good can make up for the bad. If it's like a bad, like you forgot to pay a bill. Okay, we can work through that. But if you beat the shit out of me,
fuck you. Yeah.
There's no good in the world that's ever going to make up for that.
No. And so this is where, so they live together. Obviously, their stuff has merged. Lily's journals are in the house. So
he went to the flower shop and he said, I have 3 things that are good news. He's like,
that's right.
You made the paper as the best business in Chicago.
Yes.
I got a Cambridge training thing in England for 3 months, and Alyssa's in labor. She's like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Panic, instant. So they do have their baby, and they name her Riley after Ryle. And I'm like, that bastard doesn't deserve that shit.
I feel like it was Riley and Lily's names combined. Like maybe. That's what I got out of it, but
I don't know. Maybe.
But I think she did say it was Ryle with an extra E.
Yes,
but I was like, it kind of sounds like Lily too.
I could see that. I don't know.
But they go to the hospital and Riley's perfect and they're both in love. She sees Ryle holding her in the interactions and she's like, oh my God.
Ovaries hurting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want one of these with you. And she's like, I'm going to stay for a couple more hours. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go home. Just wake me up when you get home because we're going to start tonight.
I think they go home and everything's fine for a while. That's not when she goes home.
That is when she goes home.
She does?
Mm-hmm. That night.
Why don't
she
I
gets home at 10
this?
o'clock. I just read this yesterday.
I did too.
Yeah, so she stays at the hospital for like 3 hours and Ubers home. And when she gets home,
Corey needs notes.
it's a little after 10 o'clock.
Jesus.
And the apartment's dark. And so she thinks that he's in bed. And she's like, I'm hungry. I'm just going to make myself a snack and then I'll go wake him up. So she goes in the kitchen, turns the light on, and he's leaning against the wall with his ankles crossed. And he's just like arms like pissed. And there was like an empty scotch. And she's like, oh my God, you scared me. What are you doing? And he kind of like smiles and like, where'd you get that magnet?
And that's where we learn that, so during all of this fight, there's foreplay. She's confused because he looks pissed off, but he's also being seductive. And this scene to me is so degrading of another human being. That is absolutely it. This one really was hard for me to read. And he throws a fit about this Boston magnet that says better in Boston, which we had learned in the journals that Atlas had given this to her. And in the paper, there is a story about Atlas where it says what Bib stands for, and Bib stands for best in Boston.
Better in Boston.
Better in Boston. Fuck, I need to go home and just be by myself.
You're doing great.
Fuck.
You're doing great.
And so essentially it's saying that it was inspired by a girl, and he doesn't name the girl, he just stops it at that, but Ryle's putting two and two together. And he also read about her tattoo. She has a tattoo on her collarbone that's a heart that's not fully
enclosed.
Thank you. I was going to say connected or
Same
committed.
Thing, yeah. Committed. It's fully committed, trust me.
Fuck. And that's where Atlas used to kiss her, and that was her sweet spot for him and their thing. And he threw a fit about it, and as he's foreplaying, they're having foreplay happen, he bites it, but he bites it hard.
Yeah.
And then they just get into a fight. Really, that's the biggest thing. And then it ends up in the bedroom where I know he headbutts her.
Yeah, when she opens the bedroom door, her journal is spread out all over the mattress, and she knows that he's read everything. He knows that the tattoo is for Atlas. She knows that the magnet's from Atlas. He knows everything about Atlas. Right. To be fair, she was 16 at the time, so it was a long time ago.
So there is absolutely no reason why this man should be freaking the fuck out at all.
It's called communication. Peeps. Let's learn it.
Right? Men, women, anybody, humans.
If you have ears and can talk, let's talk. Let's communicate like adults. So
go ahead.
He pushes her on the bed, and she is trying to get away from him. And she's having flashbacks to when her dad did this to her mom.
Yeah.
And he is essentially trying to rape her, and she is trying to fight back as hard as she can. And he gets sick of her trying to fight back, so he headbutts her, and she blacks out.
Yeah.
She doesn't know how long she's been out.
Yep.
But when she wakes up, he's sleeping next to her, and she doesn't know if he passed out from the alcohol or if he fell asleep.
Right.
But he's got like his arm over her, and she's trapped.
Yep. So she literally inches out of this bed. And he did throw her phone at the wall and smashed it.
Yeah, that was when he found Atlas's number.
Oh, just kidding. She got a new one. I can't.
This
book is really fucking with me, I guess.
You're good. It is a very triggering book for you, so I get it.
This one's hard. I'm like really struggling with this one.
Yeah.
But she memorized Atlas's number.
Even though she would never admit that to Ryle. When he wrote it down, she memorized it.
Yeah, she knew deep down that she was going to have to call him. So Atlas comes and gets her, and he wants to go in and beat the shit out of Ryle, and she's like, no. So they go to the hospital. She has a full workup, possible concussion, but we also find out at this point Lily's pregnant. Sad. It just, when it rains, it pours. It really does. So over this time period, for a few days, she stays with Atlas, and she meets his friends. They have a little poker night, which I loved. They have really good banter, and they don't baby her.
No.
They just talk shit like, yeah, her husband beats her, so the fuck down and play poker. And it's like, what the fuck? And
they're like, who are you? She's like, I'm Lily. Who are you? And it was like Darren and Brad or something like that. And they're like, she's like, I'm Lily. My husband's an asshole, and he put me in the hospital 2 days ago, and I found out I'm pregnant with his baby. Now I'm hiding at Atlas's house or something like that. I was like, damn, girl.
Can you say it any more blunt? Fuck. I guess that blunt's the best way to say it.
Yeah, I guess.
So with this is where it kind of goes from here. Ryle gets out of the apartment and he goes to England for, I think it's 6 months for his training. 3 months. 3 months.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really talk about it. She doesn't say anything to anybody. She kind of hides from everybody until she can't anymore. And Alyssa's the first person she tells that she's pregnant.
She has been staying at the apartment because he gave her the keys.
That's what I meant, she went back.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, after... But when Ryle leaves,
he gave her the keys. The fucker didn't even say sorry or anything.
Nope, because he didn't. He either is too embarrassed to admit what he did was wrong, which is probably the fucking excuse that he's going to give her, or B, he doesn't believe that he did anything wrong. It depends on the
flex on him.
You know, flex that bitch. I'm gonna fuck you up.
Fuck you up.
But
I've never fucked anybody up in my life.
The only two people I've ever punched in my life is my dad and my brother.
Well,
if that tells you anything in my life. But so throughout this time, Lily, when she starts showing, she finally tells Alyssa, because Alyssa guessed that something was going on. And Marshall walked in. He's like, Alyssa makes a comment like, if you want to stay my husband, don't say a damn word. Lily is not pregnant. And he's like,
well, he walks in, he goes, Lily, do you know you're pregnant?
I love him. The banter that he does, he's just a genuine soul.
He really is. He's like, Lily, you're not pregnant, and I'm not telling you congratulations.
I love it. So they have a good relationship. They help Lily through this. Well, Ryle ends up coming home, and she doesn't have time to hide her pregnant belly. So this is how he finds out he's having a child. So
he had come to tell her he was going to take the job in Minnesota.
Yep.
And
one of the M's.
Yeah, one of the M states. Maine, Minnesota, Mississippi. I don't know any of the. Montana. And he was like going to be okay with them not being together, but now that there's a baby involved, he's like, oh fuck, I really want to be a part of this kid's life. And
so he second guesses it and stays. And throughout the rest of this book is pretty much them, Lily healing, and she has a good discussion with her mom, and her mom told her that if he truthfully loves you, he won't let you get back with him. And that's kind of what solidified, not until the very end for her, but that's really what drove her of, okay, I can't do this. My mom is strong. I don't want this for my kids. So they pretty much just go through Lily's pregnancy. They are not on good standing terms. They don't talk until Lily's fucking almost ready to pop.
Yeah.
Lily goes in and has the baby. They name her Emerson after his big brother, which I thought was so touching. The fact that Lily can heal enough to allow that for him is amazing. Yeah. You know, anybody in this situation is different. You're going to have your own opinions on it and what she did and her empathy for him, but that's an amazing thing.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And as she's holding her daughter for the first time is when it really hit her, and she's looking at him holding Emerson, and she says, Ryle, and he looks at her, she goes, I want a divorce.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Gulping. This is some ASMR. Drinking some watermelon monster.
Alrighty then.
And the look on his face before she said it, he was just overcome with happiness, and then you can just see it drain. Like, it was like the worst thing that could possibly happen to him. He starts crying. He's like, there's no way to fix this. And I love the way that she makes him understand it. She says, okay, so when Lily comes to you when she's older and says, Emerson comes to you when she's older and says, Dad, my boyfriend hit me, what would you say? And he was like, I'd tell her to leave. She's
so
like,
leave
okay,
and never go back.
What if she says, Dad, my husband pushed me down the stairs, what do you say? I'd tell her to leave and never go back. Okay.
What if he tried to rape me?
Yeah.
And that's really what drove it home for him.
He was just like, holy fuck. Yeah. Like, I never want Emerson in that situation. So how can I continue to put Lily in that situation?
Yep. And this is where Lily starts to go in and describes, like, this isn't the conventional relationship she wanted with Ryle. She wanted she wanted them to be together and not be a broken family. But she knew if she would have stayed with Ryle, her daughter would have grew up in the same household aspect that she did and remember all the bad things that happened and not the good ones.
She wanted to break the cycle.
Yeah. I want to read this.
Okay.
Because this, and we'll go into this now. So the last part of this is cycles exist because they are excruciating to break. It takes an astronomical amount of pain and courage to disrupt a familiar pattern. Sometimes it seems easier to keep running in a familiar circle rather than facing the fear of jumping and the possibility of not landing on your own feet. This is really hard for me. As if you probably picked up, I grew up in a domestic household.
I'm gonna cry.
I'm trying not to. This book is the only book that I have ever read that has ever triggered me. This is probably one of the hardest ones because I resonated with it. When Ryle throws her phone and breaks it, my dad picked my mom's laptop up and straight up slammed it on the fucking ground and shattered it to pieces. I have seen shit that you don't even ever want to see. You don't ever want your kids to go through that. And it started when I was 12 and it stopped when I was 17 when my parents got divorced, but there's still things that are said in the traumatic instances of this. And I think the point of this book to me was to show you, like, you can't judge somebody's aspect. You can't judge somebody's situation. You know, I can't tell you how many people told my mom to leave through all of this.
They don't feel the love that you have for that person and the life that you live, because when it's good, but when it's bad, it's really bad. And you have to think about financial situations and if they have family around to help and just kids, and there's so many different things that go into it. Yeah. I've never been around a domestic situation, but I have been in a relationship with mental and emotional abuse, so I can resonate it on that way. I went back 3 times before I finally was just like, no, I'm done. But domestic, I literally cannot even wrap my brain around what people go through in that situation. Like, I cannot. Right. Oh my God.
This book is hard.
It's so hard.
And it's controversial right now wherever you're seeing it being recommended. You either love it or you hate it. And a lot of people are like, we love Ryle. He's an amazing guy. Why couldn't she just forgive him? And that's not the point of this book. That is not 100% not this point of the book. It's not the point of life in a domestic violence situation. It is the point to show that there is a good side to him. There is a reason people stay in this situation. This book, the first time I read it, it hit me harder with my trauma with my parents. That was the hardest thing for me. Rereading this after, I just went through a fucking cycle. I became a fucking statistic, and Lily says that in the book, and I bawled. I fell into a familiar pattern of an alcoholic, mental abuse in that aspect. That luckily for me, I didn't have the physical abuse, but there is a chance that it could have led to that due to the circumstances at the end of it. But with this, the cycles. I had the hardest time because I literally understood word for word, emotion for emotion of how Lily felt with this, because you have to be the one to break the cycle. If you don't break the cycle, it's going to continue for generations and generations. And I'm sorry, but I'm not putting my kids through what I went through. Nobody deserves to feel the way that I have felt in my life. And I'm not saying I'm the only one at all. This is a more common thing than people think of, but people don't. When you're in the situation and you have kids, they don't think about the pain they're going to cause them the rest of their life. And I love my mother dearly. Me and my mom have one of the most amazing relationships, but I resented my mom for a very long time because I felt the same thing. Why aren't you leaving? Like, he's a piece of shit. He just beats you. He calls me names. He says things to his own daughter that no father should ever say to him. And so I think this book is a very triggering book.
It really opened your eyes too, though. And like,
for the people who haven't dealt with it, like, that's why I was so excited for you to read this, because you're going to have a different aspect on it than I did. To me, it hit too close to home for me, but to you, you got to see the emotions. You've said it how many times reading this book that you still loved Ryle.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like, in the end of the book, the way that we had just done this synopsis, and we still have the epilogue to get to, but the way we had just done this synopsis, Ryle is a piece of shit. Like, it's as simple as that. But when you read it detail for detail and just all the good that they have, and you really learn who Ryle is, you do have a small soft spot for him, because he is that's one thing that she says over and over again, is people are good, but people do bad things.
Right.
And I genuinely, deep down, believe that Ryle was meant to be a good person.
Right.
But he let the dark take over. And when he gets in those angry stages, he just lashes out. And so I have the tiniest, tiny, like the little squishy in Finding Nemo.
You can be my squishy, now you can be mine.
That Ryle is a good person, but his actions spoke louder than that. And so the beginning of this book, I was absolutely in love with him. I was like, oh my gosh, him and Lily are perfect together. He is so sweet. He's this. And the end of the book, I was like, I am so glad that she left. Because not only for her, but for Emerson. And being a mom, nope. Like, and I can't say no, because if I would have stayed in that relationship, it would have led to physical abuse. I know it would have, because some of his other girlfriends and stuff did get physically abused by him. And so I got out at the right time. But I've never experienced it, not in my home life, not in my personal life, like none of that. And so it's easy for me to say no. But when I think about my kids, like, no situation in my life would ever allow me to put them in danger. Like, I would cut that off so fast, because those little turds are my fucking life. But it's easier said than done, because I've never experienced it. I've never lived it. So
it's different when you have experienced it, because you understand this to a T, you know, and the after effects of domestic violence, from my standpoint as being in Lily's shoes and being a child of domestic violence, sadly, it is so easy to end up in your situation, to end up in a situation that is parallel, to what you grew up in, because you're comfortable with it. Not saying you want to be in the situation, but to understanding it's all you know. And the fear of the unknown is scary. And for me, it was really hard, because like I can't say I wasted, because you
learned a lot.
Yeah.
We've had deep conversations about this.
For me, I personally felt like I had to go through that to understand what my mom went through, because I didn't understand why she didn't leave. I didn't understand how hard it was when you truthfully do love somebody, but the situations take over. And as sad as this is to say, I didn't even realize there was mental abuse going on until I started therapy. I didn't. I'm so desensitized to it that it's hard. But I also know my traumas now. I've worked really hard on it, and I feel for anybody who has been in a domestic violence situation, any abuse situation, any of the disrespect, I feel for you. It's hard. It's mentally tolling. And you take away from that, and you get the triggers for the rest of your life. And you can work on it. You can do what you can, but you're never going to be the same after seeing what you see. You're never going to
fully heal.
No, that shit will live with you for the rest of your life. And I know that. For me, I know my trauma will be there the rest of my life. I know there will be things that are going to be triggering to me and hard for me.
The thing is that you don't let it consume your life. You know it happened, you process that it happened, and you move forward.
It takes years and a long process. But if you truthfully wanted to, you will. You know, and that's the biggest thing. And so for me, I think this book is worth the hype, and we'll say that later, but I do think it's worth the hype if you want to understand. And it's not even just a learning experience, it's a great story, because it is true life. This is not something that is fantasy, like we're gonna go kill a fucking dragon or something, you know. It's like
we're gonna fuck 3 dudes.
DDP going on. So
the way that this book ends, though, is I literally had all the feels and all of the fucking tears, and I text Corey, I was like, why did you make me open my emotions today? But she looks at Emerson and says, scroll back up. I was going to read that. Sorry. Up. Right there. It stops here with me and you. It ends with us. And I was just like,
it's such a powerful statement. Really, it is. It's fantastic. Wonderful. Good to go. Okay. Anyways, let's talk about the epilogue after that.
Okay. So, Lily is out. Emerson is 11 months old, and she is walking her in the stroller. She got her own apartment. I do want to kind of go back just a tiny bit, but when her and Ryle were split, Atlas was present in her life, and she told him that she would never heal if he was still in her life, because with them it can't just be casual. And he understood. He left the apartment. Literally less than 3 minutes later, he was knocking on the door. She opens it, and he swoops her up, gives her a hug, kisses her on the side of the head, and basically says, when you're ready to fall in love again, fall in love with me.
I know. I love
my fucking heart.
I love Atlas.
So now Emerson is 11 months old. Lily's walking her down the street to meet up with Ryle so that he can take her for his day, because they have worked together, and I applaud both of them for this. The fact that she would trust this man with her children is just easy. Like leaps and bounds. I wouldn't allow unsupervised visitation. If that was my situation, I don't think I would do it.
As much as I agree with you, it's as sad as it is to say,
until he could prove it.
It's not that easy. The court systems fight, you know. The only reason I'm saying this is I've been through it with my mom. Yeah. Because my little brother's 11, so there's 17 years between us, and so when my parents were getting divorced, she didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
In all honesty, that's what you would want. You want to protect your child, and depending on your state laws, it could be different, but it doesn't really go into if they went to court and stuff, or if Lily is just like being... They probably just talked about it because they had that good communication.
They really worked hard to get that communication. But Lily's walking Emerson to Ryle, and she's already running late, and so she's kind of like swerving in and out of people on the streets, and she bumps into somebody and looks up, and it's Atlas.
I love it.
And he's like, hi, and she's like, hi, and it's like kind of awkward. Like they should be able to talk to each other, but they aren't.
Yeah.
And he's like, is this your baby? And she's like, yeah, it's Emerson. She's 11 months old. Well, it's good to see you. Okay, bye. And so she walks away. Yeah. And she meets up with Ryle, and he takes Emerson, and he's just like goo 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 gaga. They put everything
expecting him to do that. Oh, fuck.
So they put everything into the car. He takes Emerson, and Lily is just like, I gotta go. And she fucking books it down the street. She is running, sprinting, calling for Atlas. Atlas, where are you? Oh my gosh. And she finally sees him, and she's screaming, and he kind of stops, and he's like,
did I hear that?
He's like, I don't want to, is it false hope? Is it false hope? And then he hears it again, and he turns.
Yeah.
And they both stop and look at each other, and then they like go up, and she's like, I forgot to tell you Emerson's middle name. It's Dory.
I'm sorry, but fucking Dory. It's cute, but
it has a sentimental meaning.
I know.
She named her child after Atlas.
Hey, but I know where it's coming from, Dory, and I love Finding Nemo. That's one of my all-time favorites. I'm like,
you know what you gotta do?
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Okay.
What do? We swim.
There you go.
You didn't think I was gonna do it.
I did it.
I was gonna do it.
She did it. Oh, that's funny. So Lily and Atlas hug, and she said, okay, I'm ready. So they are having their moment, and he goes up, he kisses her collarbone like the very first time, and he whispers in her ear, you can stop swimming now, Lily. We finally reached the shore. So I'm ready for book 2, because I feel like this book is so heavy that we need to talk about sex, because this is too much for
sex,
me.
Baby.
Like, I think this book has just been so hard that I'm just like, I need some laughs now. Like,
I was so mad at you. I was like, why did you make me read that?
I'm sorry, but it's so, as much as it triggered me, it's such a good book, and it's such a, I feel like this is a learning book for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's a good teaching opportunity. It's a good understanding for everybody. Even if you hate it, you can understand it now. I mean, you don't really truthfully understand the situation until you're in it, but hey, it's an amazing book, and I have to applaud Colleen Hoover and her mom for allowing her to write this story, because this is not an easy story to write. To put your mind in a character, one, that's getting abused, and two, that's doing the abuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, she had a relationship with her father after her mom had left, and her mom allowed her to have that relationship. And it was like in the acknowledgments, she really goes through her story and like just explains like, thank you for my mom for letting me write about this. The you know, the oven without the oven mitts, that really happened to her mom.
Right.
And like, it's just insane to read that. I had to literally take an hour break before I read that, and then I was eating Taco Bell and crying into my burrito, and I was like.
Oh, I was calling at 7 a.m. 8 a.m. this morning when I was finishing up everything. This book is just, I can't with it. I honestly, truthfully, 100% can tell you I don't know if I could ever read this again.
I don't think I'm going to. I'm sorry, Colleen. I own it.
No.
I gave you my money, but I bought it twice. I got it on Kindle too.
I love this book. It holds a special place for me. But I don't want to put myself through this ever again. I have lived it. I've read this book twice. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep being triggered. I deal with enough triggers in my life that I don't need to deal with that. So, let's get into this. What was your favorite character?
I'm going to say Atlas and Marshall. I decided Marshall too because he's so
Dude,
funny.
I love it.
He made me laugh out loud.
You just added a character and I just added
Did you?
So, again, I agree. Atlas, love him. He's the superhero. Who could have loved the hero of the story, right? But I have to say, while we've been talking about this, I've been thinking, I honestly think Lily's my favorite character, too.
Lily.
I have so much respect for her character, the strength that she has, and even through all of the emotions, to leave and break the cycle. It is fucking hard to get yourself out of that situation and to be strong. It sucks.
Yeah.
And she has a good support system, and I understand that. So if you don't have a support system, support yourself.
Yeah.
Really. You have to be your own best friend. You have to be your own hero in this,
your
because
own advocate.
Nobody's going to save you. If you don't want to save yourself, you will stay in the situation for years and not waste, but let your life pass you by.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it. And it's really sad because time moves faster than you think. And so before you know it, you're sitting here and you're just like, okay.
Like Lily's mom.
Yeah.
By the way, started dating.
And
he's a good guy.
Okay. Smuttiest scene.
There's not really many to choose from. The only one that resonates, I think we're the same, is The Office.
Yeah. I think that's as hot and heavy as she gets. Let's go into the triple. We'll talk about Colleen Hoover.
1.
Yeah, it's a 1. It's a solid fat ass 1 at this, because people on Book Talk are like, what's the smuttiest book you've ever read? And they say this book, and I'm like, huh? Can I correct you?
Honestly, 50 Shades of Grey is smuttier. Gray.
This one, it's bland. It is literally like, he took my bra off and he fucked me on the bed, and it's like, that's it.
It's literally a page and a half of sex, and I'm used to like 6 chapters straight of like double penetration.
Like, yeah. Give me the fucking dick. I'm good.
Have you read Den of Vipers? He shoves a knife up her ass and fucks her so it could stab him while he's fucking her.
I love that you just did the emotions with that.
Like,
I haven't read Den of Vipers
I'm
yet.
never reading that book again.
I want to read it just so I can see, so we can compare
It's
them.
fucked up.
How fucked
That was
up
my
is
first.
fucked up?
Pretty fucked up. It was my first RH though, so I think that was pretty.
Yeah. Woo. So if you're going into Colleen Hoover for the smut, don't save your time. Go read like Penelope Douglas, Ashley Jade, all of those. Don't read. Read Colleen Hoover because she's fantastic. She's amazing.
If it's the smut you're after, though, this is more of a real life situations. Like you said, the Nicholas Sparks of like contemporary romance.
Her books will make you cry. They 100% are tearjerkers. I've read 90% of her books, and I torture myself. I don't know why the fuck I do it.
Literally gonna read It Starts With Us, and then I don't think I'm ever gonna read a Colleen Hoover book
After
again.
this, I am going into a dark, fucked up book, I think, but it better have all the fucking sex.
Right.
Like, I want to be dripping down my leg because, like, I don't want this. This is bland.
I'm getting you adult diapers.
No, just get me vibrating panties and I'll be good.
No, because then the floor will be wet.
My panties would be wet. They would catch it, the fabric.
Like your panties can hold that much moisture.
Yeah, it's going to be Niagara Falls and okay.
Okay. Would you recommend this book?
I would just understand the triggers, what this book really entails. And if you have ever dealt with domestic violence, if it's ever been in your household, or anywhere near you, just be prepared because it triggered me pretty hard.
Yeah.
So it very well could trigger you. And I was not prepared for that. I went into this thinking I was going to be okay. And
for the second time or the first time?
The first time.
Okay.
Both times I thought it was going to be okay. But I read it at 2 different points in my life. When I read it the first time, I was masking how I felt in my current relationship. I lied to myself for years, like that I was happy and that everything was okay. And so when I first read it, it triggered me from my experience from my parents. When I read it a second time, I have already been through my breakup. I have healed from that. And I'm still understanding the effects that relationship had on me. I think that's going to take me some time, which you don't know your triggers until they happen. But when I read it the second time, it triggered me for a completely different reason because I have gone through different instances in that relationship, different abuse types, different aspects of it. But I resonated with what she said about becoming a fucking statistic and understanding her mom and that. So it was harder for me.
Yeah.
This book is just kind of tore my life up. I've had anxiety all week from reading it.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the hardest thing for me is going through it again.
I honestly feel like the second one is going to be pretty hard too, because I feel like it's going to be Lily really overcoming her triggers and like being able to give herself fully over to Atlas without like still having those triggers from Ryle.
Guess we'll see, because neither
But I
of
just
us
really
have
hope
had
it's a lot of sex and babies and marriage.
Me too, because if not, I don't know if I'm going to be okay in the next 2 weeks. So you might have a shit show at work. My spicy disaster box is coming out, man.
It's coming out, man.
Would you recommend it?
I would, yes.
Sorry.
If you like to suppress your emotions, though, like me, if you are unhealthy mentally, then probably don't read it. Go watch, like, something funny.
You're fucked up, my friend.
I know. I've been going to therapy, too. I've gone twice. I have another appointment tomorrow.
Look at you go.
But I don't like to cry, and this book made me cry, but it is a good book.
Yes. So I think at this one, we want to give, if you know anybody in domestic violence, if you're in a domestic violence situation and you need help and you don't feel like you can tell your family, they do have domestic violence hotlines. So I'm going to read that one and then you can go with the suicide one. So the domestic violence hotline is 800-799-7233. If you're in the situation, please do not be embarrassed by your situation. These things happen and they are out of your control, and there is nothing to be embarrassed about. If you need the help, there are people, advocates, everything to help you and the support. So this is a touchy subject and a heartfelt one for me. Yeah. So
in the book, we didn't mention when Atlas was leaving to go into the military, he told Lily that the night he went to the house was to kill himself. And he saw her in the window, and this is the first time he had felt something, and she really saved him. So this book does touch on suicide, so we also want to provide the suicide prevention hotline. If you're having dark thoughts, if you are depressed, if you're going through anything, you can call this number to reach out for help. Advocates, the phone number is 800-273-8255, or you can text 988 for help. And please reach out, because your life is worth it.
Yeah. Can I just say, this is a heavy fucking episode. This was not like our normal one. And we wanted to release this in October because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Just with everything, we weren't able to. But hopefully next week is funnier, and hopefully we can get back to our sexual banter, because fuck, this was rough. This was rough.
We can end it on what I did at work this week.
You could tell that story. Let's give it, here's a funny, guys, because this was rough, this was hard. Here you go, here's a funny.
Okay, so at work we had a new doctor start.
He's not very nice.
He's not very nice.
He's like a grumpy old Donald, is it Donald Sutherland? It's Kiefer
Sutherland. Keith Sutherland's dad. He looks just like him. It's insane.
And he talks like him too.
Yeah, but he's just a prick. I don't like him, but
bad juju.
Yesterday was his second day. And I'm outside reading, and I had gotten to the chapter where I was like, oh shit, I think this is like the third big domestic violence situation that's going to happen. I don't want to read this at work, so I need to go ask Corey if this is where it is, because she had already passed it. So I come inside, and I go up front, and she's not up there. And our coworker, I'm like, where's Corey? She's like, she's in the bathroom. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go back to the employee bathroom. I put my face as close to the door as I can. pinch it off. I have a question for you. And I turn around, and Corey walks around the corner, and I'm like, who the fuck's in the bathroom? Corey's like, you won't believe what I just did. And I was like, who's in the bathroom? She's like, Dr. I'm not going to say his name.
Nope, I went to
and I was like, no. She's like, I literally started crying, laughing. Like,
I dropped to the floor.
Was bending over. She's like, what you did can't be worse than what I did. And I was like, bet. She's like, the door was cracked. I had to pee. I walked in, and he was brushing his teeth, and we made awkward eye contact, and he's like, I'm brushing them good. And she's like, okay, bye, and walks out. And I'm like, bro, I thought you were in there. I just walked up and told him to pinch it off because I have a question for him.
I hope he doesn't. I hope he didn't hear you. I hope that he's just past the point.
I went to the doctor that I worked for. I'm like, I'm fired.
He was like, he looked at both of us and was like, we can't take you anywhere. I'm like, hey, we're free entertainment though. Like, you can't.
You pay me to entertain you. I'm funny.
At least we have a good time at work and it's not just boring.
Well, I couldn't look at him in the eyes the rest of the day.
I hope to God that he says something to you.
Don't. I'm gonna be like, I told you that I had to pinch off the saline bag because it was leaking everywhere, and I had a question for you.
Cindy, the TV's leaking. Fuck.
Okay.
Alrighty, guys. So we are going to be releasing our episodes bi-weekly. So we'll keep you updated for upcoming episodes on our Instagram and TikTok. So give us a follow at SmutSluts.BookPodcast. And next time we'll be reviewing It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover.
Also, we do have a YouTube channel. If you want to watch us interact while we record our episode, you can subscribe to our channel at SmutSluts.BookPodcast. No spacing.
And thank you guys so much for listening.
Keep it kinky, SmutSluts.
We'll see you next time.